thank you everyone that has signed up to receive this interview. I'm very excited to introduce Kimberly McIntosh, who will be interviewing today. So she's a writer, Windrush campaigner. You're a Labour councillor as well for Southwark, I think. Social policy researcher, and of course an author. You do so much. I don't even, yeah, you're going to have to tell me how you do that. So we're going to be talking about Kimberly's book, Black Girl No Magic today. Which is a collection of personal essays. Did you want to introduce yourself at all?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that was a great intro. So I'm Kim, and I definitely have like way too many things going on at once.
Yeah, sounds it.
And yeah, my book is called Black Girl No Magic, and it's an essay collection where I mix personal stories with research to talk about how different political issues affect primarily Black women, but also Black people, and people in general in the UK. How those things shape our lives. So how do the things that are outside of our control, so where we're born, who our parents are, our race, our gender, affect our chances in life and the kind of experiences that we have.
Yeah,
And I did it to read like a memoir. So I hope it does read like a memoir. But with
absolutely. Yeah.
okay, good.
I definitely get that vibe from it.
Because you never know. But
Yeah,
I wanted it to be relatively easy to read because yeah, I mean life's hard and things
yeah,
should honestly, I think. I don't think
yeah.
everything needs to be unnecessarily difficult. Um,
Yeah, I definitely didn't get that vibe from the book. It was so like it was one of the best books I've read. I think you saw it was in my top books for 2023 because it was just so, yeah, it was exactly how you wanted to portray it. It was very easy to read, and I think the way you broke it down as well, like not all chapters were just like massive essay, like massive long essays. Some of them were just text conversations, or some of them were just like your Facebook posts from that year or something, which was really unique as well. So I thought that was really interesting. Where, like, was that a conscious thing before you started writing that you wanted to do it like that, or like how did you go into the writing process?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. Some of it I had thought about in advance. So when you pitch a nonfiction book,
Mm.
they make you kind of plan out each essay, if it's an essay collection. And I did plan out some of the kind of shorter, less formal bits before I had sold the book. So I'd like all of those things in advance, but some of them came way later. So the things that I took from my travel diary, I
Mm.
thought of like quite late into writing the book. It just came to me randomly.
Yeah.
I think there was a need from my editor said that to kind of like make things flow between the chapters.
Mm.
And then it just came to me. I was like, oh, I wonder what's in my travel diary. Let me
Wow,
open it.
okay.
I was like,
Also, it's
oh,
like a reminiscent thing. You're
yeah.
going back. Oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that. It was a perfect flow between the chapters as well, because obviously the subject matter, as much as you did bring in some really like fun and like exciting things that has happened to you, obviously a lot of the subject matter was quite serious as well. And obviously, like you said, you wanted to portray how people, or sort of try and explain how people are affected by things outside of their control. So a lot of that is like, things to do with the government or like systems, like specifically obviously like systematic racism, systematic like sexism, homophobia, anything like that, which is completely out of, certain people's control. Which I think, yeah, I think you definitely portrayed a good balance in the book, I would say. So that's what I really enjoyed, because I don't know if you see my social media, but I'm definitely a non-fiction girl. Like I love my
That's,
non-fiction.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is you don't get as many nonfiction girlies on like Book Talk and what's the Instagram version of Book Talk? What do they
Oh,
call it?
I think it's called like Bookstagram, but I
Oh yeah,
hate saying it out
Instagram.
loud. It's like, yeah, it sounds really funny. Yeah, there's so many, but no, I completely agree. I've actually struggled to find as many like non-fiction book talkers, but like women and men as well. I think it's just not as common, which is, fair enough, because I do have my own like struggles with non-fiction sometimes, because it can be hard to really get into a book. Like obviously if you like their writing and stuff, but fiction, you know, it's a story, you can immerse yourself in it, whereas non-fiction, you are really reading about the world that we're living in. But at the same time, that's what I love about it. So yeah, what would you like? Would you say, would you call yourself a reader, or like?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't been super great this year, but I love to read, and I can tell if I'm in a good place if I'm reading. If I'm not
Yeah.
reading, that normally means that I'm on the way to burnout or I'm stressed. But
Oh,
if I'm
okay.
reading, that means in a good place. Yeah,
Okay.
reading things that make me really happy. So if I don't have the space to read, then it's probably
Mhm.
a bad sign.
Mm.
But it's quite tough getting back into it. So
Yeah.
I was in a bit of a rut, but I think I'm coming out of it. And
Okay.
I started with novels, but now I'm back reading nonfiction again. So I'm reading Jason Okundaye's book, Revolutionary Acts, and I'm finding that
Revolutionary
really,
Acts. Yeah, I was trying
yeah,
to think of the name of it then. Yeah, that's on my list to read this year actually as well. How are you finding it?
I'm really enjoying it. It's really great. It's a really good, it's to be honest, I think it's going to be quite what's the term, like canonical in that,
Oh,
like I think a lot of the history is, yeah, I can see it being on like syllabus as a text to read at
okay.
uni, you know, like if you're doing a module, particular
Yeah.
module, like
Oh,
sexuality or something like that, because it is
yeah.
it's only following six black gay men and
Mhm.
their stories, but it tells quite a lot about the history of activism, kind of gay and lesbian activism in the UK and like left-wing activism through their stories. So I think I think it's
Oh,
gonna
okay.
take some time. I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying it. It's gossipy, so it's like fun to read as
Ooh,
well.
yeah. No, I love that. I think it's hard, I can imagine, for an author to really make their book stand out in this like in this current time, because I feel like there's just so much out there. Like there's obviously not only physical books, but there's e-readers, like there's audio books that people create and things like that. So I can imagine it can be quite difficult as an author. You know, obviously you can speak to this more so, but to really make your work stand out. So that's nice to hear that it's written in a bit of a different way, and that could actually be, yeah, that's cool that it could be, you know, read as a text in school. I think they definitely need to diversify the spectrum when it comes to like books that we read in school, because my I was having a conversation with my mum about this because she's an English teacher in an SEN school, and she said she's just always reading white men in their texts and stuff, and it can be very, not necessarily repetitive, but it just can be very like tunnel vision, one point of view. Obviously, we spoke a little bit about your like research and writing before. So you said that you wrote a lot of this during lockdown. So what was your journey when you first started like thinking about writing or actually starting to write the book?
Yeah, I started thinking about it properly maybe a year before the pandemic hit. So I went to a talk called I can't remember the name, but it's basically getting into nonfiction or something like that.
Mm.
And yeah, listened to a panel who kind of spoke about what you need to do. And I started working on a proposal, but it's quite difficult because I don't know if anyone who kind of is part of your collective are also trying to write books, but if you're
Mm.
looking for a proposal online to get a sense of it, no one really puts that stuff out there. So it's quite hard to know what do you put in it, what does it look like. So
Mm.
I was just guessing, but then I got an agent and that helped a lot because then she sent me a proposal and I knew kind of what to work off.
Yeah.
But then I started working on the proposal in December 2019, and then
Yeah.
early 2020 we went into lockdown, and there are pros and cons to that. So obviously lockdown was a lot, but
Mm.
being able to yeah, like oh,
Yeah, like shivers.
yeah, like it's all coming back to me. But it did mean that I was at home a lot and there wasn't a lot to do. So I worked on a lot of my proposal during that time.
Mm.
Then when it started to seem like I would get signed by my agent, then I knew to have the time to write the book properly, assuming it would be sold, I would need more hours in the day. And I was working full time at the time. So I looked for a new job that was 3 days a week.
Okay.
and reduce my hours so that I'd have time to work on the proposal properly.
Mm.
And then I finished the proposal in December 20, oh no, earlier in the year. And then we went through some edits. You have to write one of the essays in full
Oh,
as a
okay.
sample, and
Mm.
then sold it in December 2020.
Right.
So I spent most of
Okay.
the lockdown working on the proposal. Well,
Yeah.
lockdown, and then the next set of
Going
lockdown, writing the book.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's really interesting. So you definitely had a lot more time then because lockdown was just, um, just it was a crazy time, but I feel like you had so much, like you will never get that time back again, which I think, yeah, it's hard to think of it like that. But okay. So when you were writing it, would you have changed anything? Like, would you go back now? If you could go back now, would you have changed how you did anything or?
I think what I know now is I definitely am glad that I looked for a job where I worked less to make the space. So I
Yeah.
think there reaches a point where you kind of have to bet on yourself a bit. And I know that's
Mhm.
not open to everyone. Like I don't have children and my rent is extremely expensive, but it's okay. I've lived in
Yeah.
the same place for 6 years, so it's kind of all
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
I was able to take the pay cut, but that was definitely a good move because I think it is really difficult trying to write that amount around work, but it is possible, and I know people who have done it. So
Yes.
I definitely do that again.
Hmm.
But I think having been in the publishing industry now for a few years, I have yeah, it's quite a tricky industry. And I think I went in kind of with rose tinted glasses thinking like I was
Yeah.
going to be, just sat in like glamorous Airbnbs with like
Yeah.
beautiful elves, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
being
And it's
very
not.
like
Yeah.
very romantic.
Mm.
And it's, there are just publishers, they buy a lot of books, and a
Okay.
lot of it is the person that buys your book generally like really believes in it and is really passionate, but it's still an industry and people leave their jobs, and then then a new person works on it. And I've
Yes.
moved 5 different editors, which I've been told is extremely unlucky.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of change and it is a business. And I think if
Mm.
I went into it again now, I would just have a bit more awareness of that, because I was very much like, this is my baby and like everyone's
Yeah.
going to care
Yeah.
loads about it. But actually, you know, it's a job at the end of the day to people, and
Yeah.
you have to see it that way. And I'd
Mm.
probably put a bit more distance between me and the book itself, because
Okay.
yeah, it is obviously you work on something for 3 years, you care about it a lot, but
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think I'd maybe care about it a bit less and just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can completely understand that, I think. And that's quite a big thing as well to like you said, like bet on yourself to come away from your full-time job. So I imagine how long were you working at that job for? The one that you had left?
3.5 years.
Okay, so that's quite a long time to be at a job, like, yeah, and just suddenly leave it for something that you are passionate about. And like you said, it's obviously it's very precious to you. So to give it away to someone else and also have the kind of worry that, it may not be accepted or it may be changed or to something you may not want it to be. So I imagine that, yeah, that's quite a difficult thing. Did you have any like thoughts or anything whilst you were going through that process? Was there anything that helped you like cope or manage with that big transition?
I think like loving writing just helps a lot. You know, it's there's been lots of ups and downs with it, but I mean, for when I would still do it all again.
Mm.
And it is amazing being someone paying you to write whatever you want. Like it is
Yeah.
incredible. And some days I'd be like sat there, just like, I can't believe someone's just paying me to
Oh,
just
I
like
love that. Yeah.
whatever I want. This is so amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think keeping sight of that helped a lot.
Mm.
And yeah, going for a lot of walks, trying to build community with other people who write, I think helps a lot as well.
Yeah.
And like it's quite a strange thing writing, and it can be quite solitary. So
Okay.
kind of meeting other people who have done it or were doing it, I found
Mm.
really as well.
I can
And
imagine.
yeah, I definitely recommend doing that if anyone was thinking about going through the process themselves.
Yeah.
And since it's been out, I've really, enjoyed like book talk and stuff. Like people are really, really nice.
Oh
And it's
my
a
God.
great,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
it's such a lovely community. Like I didn't really have any expectations when I first like went into the whole book talk, bookstagram like world, but it's so accepting. Like everyone is just so lovely. And I just remember one of my first posts, I was like, oh hi, like I'm Millie, like I want to start a book talk or bookstagram thing. This is what I want to do. And everyone was like, welcome to the book community. And it was just, yeah, that's one of the main things I'll say about book talk. So that's how you sort of found people to resonate with you, or like, you know, speak to you about what you were sort of experiencing. Because yeah, I can imagine writing, especially during lockdown as well, that was a solitary time for everyone anyway. Like writing about something that's so personal to you, I can imagine that was quite would you say like lonely, or just sort of solitary?
I think definitely solitary. I think it can be lonely if you're writing about something that's quite emotionally draining. Actually, towards the end of writing it, I did say to people, I was like, I will never write about myself again. Not like
Okay.
because it's I enjoyed it
Yeah.
thoroughly, but it is quite draining thinking about like going through all these moments in your life. And
Mhm.
some of them are really funny, but some of them sad or stressful, and you're having to sit with them for a really long time.
Yeah,
And can be, it's quite a strange thing, and it can be quite a lonely thing.
I can
And
imagine.
it would take me a while to want to write about myself to that degree again.
Okay.
But I don't regret it, but it is,
Yeah,
yeah,
one-time
it's
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But like, yeah, looking at it, like it's basically like staring at yourself in a mirror for so long, and it's yeah, and then having to articulate it in a way that other people will be able to receive it. Yeah, I can imagine it's quite like you said, draining and just quite a challenging thing. Would you say that was one of the most challenging things about the writing process?
Yeah, definitely. And there were some things that I wrote about that I cut. And
Okay.
that was because when it went through the structural edit, so like the first big edit that your editor does on your manuscript, and they'll say, you know, kind of you need to kind of talk more about this, or you need to kind of bring this story out more,
Mhm.
so that it flows better, or to kind of make the point you want to make, and to keep the theme kind of really visible throughout the book. You know, you
Mm.
need to bring this bit out more. And there were some things where in the end I was like, I actually don't think I can do it, and I think that really indicates that I shouldn't talk about those things publicly, because
Yeah.
once you put something out there, you can't take it back, and you can't control how people respond to it. So there was
Mm.
kind of a negotiation of, you know, what am I happy to have out there,
Mhm.
and like happy to be open to scrutiny and maybe even criticism,
Yeah.
which can feel quite personal because it is about my personal life. Holy College, which is does a lot of creative writing stuff, and someone was surprised. And I said, when I said I kept some things back, she was like, really? Because you really put a lot of things.
Yeah.
Not everything made it.
Course, because yeah, there was a lot in the book, a lot to take in. But I think it was important though, because I'm sure that like there's so many people that would love to read that and feel like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one, or you know, I thought you know, no one else had gone through this. So no, I can imagine it was quite useful for some people. But yeah, very brave, I think, to like yeah, just put yourself out there. I can imagine. So you know, going back to your career and everything, we said in the beginning you do a lot, you do so much, and you obviously write a lot of articles. You've been a policy researcher, a social policy researcher for the Runnymede Trust previously, and I believe at the moment I read somewhere that you're on like the women's budget group board. Was I right, or did I completely make that up? I don't know.
No,
Um,
I was, but I was on too many boards, so I stood down.
okay.
But I wasn't there for quite a while, and now I'm on just two. So, oh no, three. No, I stood down. Yeah, just two. So
Mhm.
one, Wasafiri magazine, which is a
Yeah.
literary magazine at Queen Mary, that mostly work with a focus on international contemporary literature,
Mhm.
and a charity called Reproductive Justice Initiative, which kind of looks at reproductive health and access, mostly for marginalized groups. So
Okay.
it's those two, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was a women's budget group as well for quite a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you just, yeah, you've got a lot on at the moment, and you do, you write a lot of articles I've seen as well, and you share a lot on social media. So I suppose my question is more like, how do you maintain your passion for it all? Because I know that sometimes when you do something so much, it sort of consumes your life. You may lose a bit of empathy, not empathy, sorry, like emphasis for it. Like you lose a bit of passion for it. Would you say you struggle to maintain it, or is it just come naturally to you?
Oh no, I struggle to maintain it for sure.
Okay.
So I do love all the things that I do, but I'm not great at taking breaks and quitting things, but
Mhm.
I'm getting better at it. But I
Yeah.
had a bit of a wake up call last year because I got signed off work just before the hardback came out of the book.
Okay.
And it was just, it was a long time coming, but like on reflecting on that, I've reduced my hours
Mhm.
at work, step back from loads of things on the council. So I don't do any, I used to have positions and stuff. I got rid of all of those. I left the
Okay.
Women's Budget Board,
Mhm.
and I also do some contract work as a consultant for a
Okay.
foundation, but that's like much more flexible work. So
Mhm.
I'm just trying to, if I'm going to do this portfolio thing, like build it in a way that there's just a bit more space. So now
Yeah.
I have more space in the daytime to kind of pitch and write articles, do book related things,
Mhm.
and can control my workload a lot more. So
Mm.
touch wood, it seems to be working a lot better.
Okay.
And I can do yoga like in the middle of the
Oh,
day,
yeah.
morning. Be
That's the
nice.
dream, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels,
Yeah.
I do feel very much like living the dream when I'm doing yoga in the middle of the day. It's really
Yeah, I can
nice.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I live in my dream. Yeah. No,
But
that sounds
it's,
good. Yeah. It
yeah,
sounds like you've created a nice balance for
yeah, definitely. Because
yourself.
otherwise you do start to kind of lose your passion for things.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely had that a bit with like writing and publishing, where yeah, I started to lose my passion for it a bit. But
Oh.
yeah, but it is coming back. It's coming back. So that's good.
So like talking about your own background, and you spoke about earlier about you wanted to become, or you like writing, you love writing. So was there anything in your childhood specifically that had inspired you to write?
I can't think of a specific moment that was kind of the big trigger, but I do remember knowing that I love writing for a really long time. Like I was always one of those people who like kept a diary. I wrote like terrible poems that mostly all sounded kind of like derivative of like Tupac, basically. Um, they're not, but like obviously without the skill and the talent.
Oh,
Um, but
sounds great. Why
but
didn't you put
yeah,
them in the book?
yeah, I should have. I should have actually. I mean, one got like two, when you got two ticks at school, and it was like, oh yeah, this is really good. Got one of those. So
Oh, okay.
something like believe like not believable voice, but like strong voice or something. I remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a highlight.
Yeah, love that. That sounds great. Okay.
But yeah, I always loved it, and I used to like write. I remember writing like a mock article for like Elle, because I used to read Elle magazine all the time.
Okay.
That was like, trying to like mimic the style that they used to write in there.
Yeah.
To enter a competition, but then I wasn't brave enough to enter it.
Oh,
Because I was really young as well. But so I was just like,
yeah.
oh no, and so
Yeah,
I
you
didn't do
psych
it.
yourself out. Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
understandable.
always loved it. And then when I got to uni, I wrote for the student newspaper and stuff, like a lot of people do.
Hmm.
And yeah, I got a lot of encouragement from people in my life as well. So my friend is a journalist,
Okay.
and yeah, she told, like, when we were at uni, she was like, you have to write for the student paper, and so I did. And
Mm.
then people were like, oh, you're like really good, and so I was like
Yeah.
encouraged by that. Okay,
Yeah.
like just giving
Positive
my
reinforcement.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, let me keep
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, like yeah, bring the confidence in. No, I love that. No, it's good. It's always good to have people around you, to be honest, because it makes such a difference. You don't like sometimes you don't even realize that just a little, that's brilliant, or I love that, or it's just yeah, I definitely agree with that. So obviously you mentioned in your book that you've spent your life trying to like piece together. I think I'm trying to read the so it's like piece together the fragments of a broken society that you would now call class inequality. So what did that look like for you when you were younger?
Yeah, so it was kind of wild. Like, so when I was 7, I got this scholarship to a private school in the countryside. And so there's this TV show called Borders at the moment, and like all
Yes.
the about like basically the same thing, but for sixth formers, which is based on a true story. And like
Yeah.
all like scholarship private school girlies are like triggered, like,
Oh,
including
okay.
like watching the show. Like I actually, I particularly my secondary school, I really, really liked, but it is basically anyway, yeah, this school wanted to like it was like an all-white school and they
Mhm.
wanted to diversify the school. So, but they also wanted the kids to be like doing well academically. So
Oh,
they
okay.
went to like a supplementary school that I used to go to, like a youth club, and
Okay.
said that like mostly had black children in it.
Mhm.
There's an African Caribbean youth club. You know, do you have any students you think would be good for this? And
Mhm.
then us were picked, and we went and did lots of tests, and I was one of the successful students.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm not from a wealthy family, so it was, and like I have mostly lived in social housing my whole life, so
Mm.
it was like a bit of a culture shock to go from
Yeah.
that to, yeah, all these like very posh people who live in the countryside and have horses and stuff.
Yeah.
And from that, I started to, yeah, realize that, you know, there's something really off about all of this. Like, why is
Okay.
it that, yeah, some people are this wealthy and other people aren't? And why is it that all the wealthy people I know are white? And why don't
Mhm.
they know anyone who's different to them? And like, what does this all mean? And so
Mhm.
I think from a young age, it just meant that I had an interest in those questions,
Mhm.
and they were kind of all around me all the time.
Yeah.
And basically spent ever since then trying to figure out why all that is.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. And that definitely is portrayed in your book a lot as well. So it speaks a lot about the intersections between like race and class as well. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing to notice at such a young age as well, like to be that socially aware. Do you think that like that sort of came from anywhere, or was that sort of instilled in you at any point, or was it just you just started to notice these things?
I think you definitely like notice them quickly because they're just so stark and in your
Yeah, yeah,
face.
yeah. Yeah.
But my mum also prepared me before going about, you know, kind of what it might be like and what people might be like.
Okay.
And so that I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I'm quite lucky in that respect because then I wasn't surprised and I
Mm.
felt a bit more prepared in how to navigate that environment
Yeah.
and, you know, also avoid being stigmatized.
Yeah.
People will have preconceived ideas and
Mhm.
kind of being prepared for what those might be.
Yeah.
Not to be any different, like you can only be yourself and you shouldn't be anyone else, but just kind of knowing what people might be like, I think was
Yeah.
very handy.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine. I think yeah, you spoke a little bit in your book about how yeah, your mum sort of had that talk with you as well, and that you also may need to work harder than other people in your particular situation to get to the same point. So I think as well you speak about I think the way you speak about it as well is really interesting, like the sort of language and like it's sort of like going into I think you use the analogy of going into a foreign country and then coming out fluent in their language, which I think was really interesting. And you said how it has benefited you, obviously being well versed in, I suppose, like middle class or upper class culture because it's helped you in the workplace. So yeah, I think that's really it seems like it was quite prominent within your schooling. You also, I think you went on, I think I can't remember exactly what it was called, but maybe Across the Red Line or something like that. It was like a debate on
Oh,
BBC, which I listened to. I thought that was, yeah, that was a really, really brilliant interview, a really brilliant concept actually as well. But you speak a little bit about how there isn't as much like BAME representation within the UK curriculum. Obviously, we were speaking a little bit about that earlier. Was that also quite prominent within your schooling?
yeah, definitely. I was trying to think like what did I learn at school in terms of kind of anything to do with like Black history or kind of history of migration or like
Mm,
anything that wasn't just like Henry VIII and the
mm,
Tudors and World War One and Two.
mhm,
And the only things I could think of were we did learn about enslavement because I remember that because even though it was taught well, like I had a really good history teacher at actually at both my schools,
mm.
but I just remember it because obviously I felt like really uncomfortable and
I
people
can
were being
imagine.
nice about it because they're obviously trying to be extra interested to not like offend
Oh
me.
God.
When,
Oh no, so awkward.
so yeah, it was like awkward, but like, it wasn't, people weren't cruel or anything. But
Yeah.
I also remember being glad when it was done.
Yeah,
but,
I can
but it was
imagine.
important to learn about, and I'm glad we did.
Mm,
But then after that, we did a little bit in secondary school on the US civil rights movement, but
mm.
not really, like only in passing, kind of in
Okay.
relation to the Nazis.
Oh,
But
so
that was
really,
kind of it. I did a lot of Disraeli and Gladstone for anyone who's into Victorian politics, and I'm into it, but it's a gaping hole, and I actually don't know I know once I got to university, then I did history, so then I learned about lots of other things.
yeah,
I always assumed that I just didn't know anything about kind of not nothing, but I didn't know all that much about imperialism and the history of colonialism until I
mm,
got to university. But then I read my travel diary and I obviously did know. So I don't know
yeah,
where I picked it up from, if it was from home or
yeah,
maybe from the youth club,
yeah.
maybe both, but
You
definitely
probably
not.
did. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not school. Because yeah, I don't really remember learning anything too specific about that subject either, to be honest. But yeah, it may have just been that you found stuff out yourself, or like your family may have been like talking to you about it. And yeah, but I think it's important as well, because you also mentioned in that interview about how it's important for us to learn about our or British influence in other countries as well because of imperialism and colonialism. Which definitely, yeah, I think a lot of people would benefit from learning about that.
It is like that history is important for everybody to learn, like not
Mhm.
just um
Exactly.
like black and brown people.
Yeah,
Um,
which seems to fall, the burden falls onto that group as well, I think, to teach about it. Why was it that you chose history at university?
it was always going to be a toss up between like history, geography, or English literature,
Okay.
but I loved history. I always have, even like from quite a young age actually,
Mm,
and I think it kind of fits with just wanting to kind of understand how the world works and why we've ended up where we are.
yeah.
And yeah, I have always really, really loved it.
Mm,
And yeah, I had really good teachers as well. And I
yeah.
think
Oh, that makes such a difference.
yeah, such a difference, such a difference. I thought
Yeah.
about politics too,
Mm,
but
that's quite
yeah,
a heavy subject. Like that's even heavier than history, I think. You have to devote your whole life to that. Yeah. I mean, I did a social sciences degree, so I had a bit of a cushy time in university.